Okay, welcome to our Out of Shabbat Parashat class. Parashiyot Ahar'Mot-Kedoshim, double parasha this week, of course. The question of the day is, how can we frame the most detrimental and evil act of Torah violation? We're going to focus on something in the second parasha, Parashat Kedoshim. As we explained, many explain regarding Parashat Kedoshim in the past, that it houses some of the most fundamental misvot ben Adam lahavero, of laws regarding proper interaction and behavior between man and fellow man, how we treat our fellow Jews, standards of morality, directives of proper ethical behavior. This parasha is replete with some critical commands and guidance by the Torah as to our higher order ben Adam lahavero behavior as Jews. And there are a number of Pesukim that actually house multiple directives and mizvot, precious ones at that, in our ben Adam lahavero, man, between man and fellow man behavior. And one of them that we'll focus on is in Parashat Kedoshim, Perek Yutet, chapter 19, Pasuk Yud Zayin, verse 17. And that Pasuk addresses what we will eventually identify as a number of important mitzvot. But first, just a very important flow of ideas. Let's read that Pasuk. Lo tisna et achicha bilvavecha, tochiach et amitecha, v'lo tisa alav chet. It's a famous Pasuk. Do not hate your fellow man in your heart. You shall surely rebuke your fellow man. And of course, we noticed the change, and we're not going to focus on this, of achicha to amitecha, and you have different ways, of course, also re'acha, re'echa, of addressing fellow Jew in this parasha. But don't hate someone in your heart, rebuke, and v'lo tisa alav chet, don't hold upon him a sin. So we ask ourselves what that last say component of the pasuk, segment of the pasuk even means, what's it referring to, and what is the connection and flow between these three ideas. So the Rashbam really explains to us how this is almost like a sequence of events, and the Torah's guidance to us as how to react and handle ourselves in such a situation in life. Someone does something to you for which you have very strong negative, ill feelings towards him. And of course, these feelings are built up inside, and they're growing. And the Torah says, wait a second. You're holding this in. It's really starting to boil, and it's nearing an imploding state, or an internal explosion, right? Unhealthy. No. Don't at all let this build up in your mind and in your heart. Rather, approach this person, engage him. Means rebuke. All right, tell him, listen, I'm not sure if you remember, you did such and such to me. I'm slighted by this. I'm very hurt. This caused me harm. Speak to him, engage in conversation. Let it all out. Not without control, not in anger, but very sternly, very directly. And in doing so, you'll be rebuking him, of course. And don't let, in this context, we'd say, carry the sin upon him. In other words, don't let the sin continue to be, not only to fester in your mind, but to really be sitting on his shoulders, in that he is, from your perspective, has the burden of a tremendous guilt. Now, engaging in this exercise, you may find it may very well be revealed to you that things are not what they seem to be. You may shed light on a different actual intent, a different occurrence, a sequence of events that seemed like it was something, excuse me, but indeed is something else. In other words, thank you. If you actually speak this out, you'll be shocked sometimes at your flawed approach, perspective, or understanding of what happened. Open up, speak about it. Maybe it will foster some shalom, Am Yisrael, and don't allow this to build up in your mind. Now, there's another way to look at the final segment of the pasuk. Don't look to Sa'alav het. Don't hold upon him. Who's the him? The him could be the Torah talking about the person you're addressing. And that is like the Orah Haim says, that look, if you don't rebuke him and maybe give him the opportunity to detour from his current course of action and change from his behavior that he demonstrated to you, maybe the sin will be upon you. Lo tisa alav het, this individual shouldn't hold the sin upon him because it will be. In other words, you might, because of lack of intervention and not rebuking this person, we feel rebuking sometimes is like a mind your own business type of thing. Absolutely not. It's a Torah direction. And because of your, so to speak, not butting in, you may actually be the one holding the burden of guilt. And the sin may now be shifting from his shoulders to your shoulders. Could you imagine? Just because you didn't open it up. Now, that is a nice flow of ideas, a nice way to look at the pasuk. The technical way to view this pasuk, again, we should know this pasuk we should know it by heart. The whole Torah by heart. Right? But this pasuk, it's so critical that we should view this as three segments and really know it well for the sake of this conversation to handle it. Sin'ah, hatred, tocheha, rebuke, and holding sin upon someone. There's actually listed in the seven Mizvot of the Rambam, three different Mizvot being addressed over here. Two of them are lo ta'aseh, negative commandments, and one's an aseh, one's a positive. The lo ta'aseh, of course, the first one is the prohibition of hating, which we'll address for the remainder of this class. The aseh, the positive commandment, is tocheha. We have a positive commandment to rebuke our fellow man. There is a whole set of laws that guide that directive from the Torah how to carry that out. It's the what, when, how, and who of the mitzvah. You got to know that this is in context. So rebuking can be as a delicate activity, but yet command from the Torah. That's mitzvah number 2 and the positive one. And then mitzvah number 3, that Rambam teaches us based on Hazal, that sometimes in performing a mitzvah, if you do it the wrong way, you can not only not perform the mitzvah correctly, but be guilty of a big avera. How so? If you rebuke in the wrong manner, in the wrong setting, you may end up embarrassing somebody in public. And that's called, says the Rambam, a negative commandment, lo talbin peneh havero barabim. Embarrassing someone publicly is a violation of a negative commandment. So negative, don't hate, positive, rebuke, but negative in doing so, don't embarrass. 3 separate mitzvot. So we spoke about their flow. Now there's actually a technical set of commands in this pasuk. But what I want to focus on, we need to focus on really, is the first one. Why? Hate's a negative thing to focus on, but the Torah tells us as a commandment, don't hate. The reason why I want to focus on it is because we find, when we dig in to other sources in Hazal, that hatred is treated by the Torah in the most severe way with most harsh implications possible. Let's start with the saying that we're all aware of, and that is that the Gemara Masechet Yoma tells us the reasons why our first Bet HaMikdash and first and second temple were destroyed. And they tell us the first temple was destroyed because of the big three: idolatry, adultery, and murder. And the second Bet HaMikdash was destroyed because of Sinat Hanam, as we loosely define baseless hatred. Now, there is a Gemara in Masechet Shabbat we must mention that gives 8 additional reasons why the second Bet HaMikdash was destroyed. If you look carefully, 3 or 4 of them are related very much to Sinat, to hatred, and it's a very important analysis and to make it a Gemara to learn. However, we can say that chiefly, if we look in other sources as well, Sinat Hanam, hatred, is looked as the primary reason for why God decided to obliterate his own house, so to speak. So that is a primary source that we're all aware of. There is a Mishnah in Pirkei Avot, as we're reading in these days, Pirkei Avot, that Rabbi Yosef says, because of 3 reasons, a person, Mosina, 3 activities, Mosina Ta'adam and Ha'olam, remove a person from this world. 3 modes of behavior make a person dysfunctional in his own life with himself and so hard to exist. Ain hara, yesar hara, and sinata b'riyot, and hating other people. Let me read you a couple of comments that some of the commentators utter regarding the isur of hatred. I start with the Sefer HaChinuch. He says, when he gives the reason, of course, of every single mitzvah in the Torah, but the way he depicts this, he calls it, first of all, it's a siba l'kol ha'mesirot hana'asot ben anashim. It's the reason behind all other behavior, negative behavior between people. V'hi hamidah hapihuta v'hanim'asa techlit hami'us v'anei kol ba'asech. It's the mode of behavior, it's the trait that is the most lowly and disgusting, abhorrent in the eyes of any intelligent person. You would think that maybe rape or something that's more violent is the most disgusting type of mode of behavior. This is hatred. I'll read you a little bit and then we'll speak about it more from the Kada Kema, written by Rabbeinu Bachyan, second Rabbeinu Bachyan. And he says regarding hatred as follows. He calls Sinat Hanam, baseless hatred as we call it, holy kasher, a serious illness. Rosh l'chol avirot shebatorah. It is the head, it is the most severe. It is sin number 1 on the list of sins in the Torah. You mean it? Number 1, a sickness, he calls it. Now, there are, of course, practical reasons for this harsh descriptions and depictions of someone who violates this prohibition of hatred. For instance, both commentators that we just read, Sefer HaChinuch and Rabbeinu Bachyan and the Kada Kema, speak about, practically speaking, what it leads to. As the Sefer HaChinuch says, that it is the starter, it is what's behind. He says it's goremet ra'od gedolot ben bnei adam. It causes the worst behavior between people because it's the impetus for acting harshly and severely and negatively towards somebody else to the extent of even murder. The Rabbeinu Bachyan goes through how one step leads to another. How if you hate someone, well, you're going to lie about him. And you're going to lie about him. Eventually, you might even lie in a more severe context and engage in false testimony, spread false rumors about him. And then you will, actually go into more severe modes until, yes, you will go to war over hatred. People murder because of hatred. It's a practical reason why this is put as number one, because even if others seem more severe to you, but this is the source of those others. It's what leads to those others. Mm-hmm. But we need, besides the practical, to understand what's behind it, the ugliness of it. And we really need to define what sinat hanam is. The word baseless hatred is not a great definition. And the reason is because baseless means without any base, without any reason. No one does anything without reason. There's no such thing. If you ask someone, why'd you just murder? I'll have a reason. I'll give you a reason why I murdered him. It doesn't have to be a good reason. Why do you hate him? I have a reason why I hate him. Right? Maybe it's not justifiable. So there's no such thing as for nothing. So maybe baseless is not the best word. But let's try to understand, conceptually speaking, the ugliness of this, and maybe why it was the source and the impetus for HaKadosh Baruch Hu to destroy the Beit HaMikdash. So it's really, and for us to take corrective measures, it behooves us to really understand how detrimental, how powerfully destructive sinat can be, and why Hachamim speaks so harshly about it. On a practical level, it's not so hard to imagine. But let's speak a little more in depth. So Rabbi Hirsch has a wonderful essay, you can say, on sinat chinam, and he starts off by saying that the truth is that if somebody acts towards you in such an egregious manner, behaves in a manner that he forgets his duty towards a fellow man, in a manner that's unworthy of being called re'acha, your fellow Jew, failing to recognize the rights of another person, right? Unworthy to be really called a brother. But the latter, the built into this command tells you that with all of that, if a person is so guilty of an act, maybe even a malicious act towards you, why, even in that extreme case, that a person can't engage in hate. And the reason is, he says, lo tisna et achicha. Because no matter what, he remains achicha. No matter what, he is and the lineage that we all share, a brother that shared an original father, which is Avraham Abinu, and shares a father in heaven. And therefore, he says, sin'ah must not arise within us, even in the most, we can say, appropriate setting that we would think that sin'ah is justifiable. But he says the law tisna really incorporates something that is much more basic and common. And it really plays on to the natural feelings and emotions of a person. And that is as follows. I'll read you some of his terminology, and then I'll give you the IE. He says that there's a trend called sinat chinam. He calls it unjustified and unprovoked hatred. Unreasonable hate, but it's very prevalent amongst us. And we look at someone, a brother, and a brother may be very often working for the same goal and almost competing for the same goal in our nation. And in doing so, he says, by his perseverance and abilities, this brother threatens to overtake him. And this alone suffices to see in this brother of his a hindrance to his welfare, a condition justifying hate and wishes for his downfall. Let me explain in the sophisticated terminology of Rabbi Hirsch what he's really talking about. He's saying as follows. There's somebody else. This other person has at a similar goal. He wants to get somewhere, but he's taking a different approach altogether. And this approach is not like mine. His mindset, his philosophy, his set of beliefs, his understanding is different than mine. And because of that, he becomes my competitor. He's very threatening to me. And I feel that I want to validate what I believe in, my beliefs, my feelings. I need what you can call a victory, right? In my positions in life, right? This person opposes me. This person, his opinions are impeding my progress. This group is very different than my group. And I think they're wrong. And I think that their approach to Torah, to godliness, is not what it should be. And because of the fact that he's stopping me from getting where I need to get to, I need to fight back. I need to hate. I hate him because he stands in my way, stands in my way of success. I need my opinion to be the right one, my philosophy to be validated. I need my movement to be victorious, and my understanding to be the one that everyone adopts. This person is not that, and I hate him for that. Because I hate him, I can then justify my activities. You can talk about it. Listen, I'll take it a step further. What's really behind it is that I want the truth. He doesn't stand for the truth. Let me enlighten everyone about this. Let me warn everyone about this person. He's not the truth. Stay away, keep away. He's wrong, right? And then all of a sudden, this buildup, he becomes the enemy. And all of a sudden, there's no room for anything but you. And all of a sudden, anything that is not fitting the mold of your movement, of your group, of your philosophy, is now something that justifiably I can oppose in not just an active way, but emotionally in a way that allows me to hate this person because he doesn't stand for the truth. That means God doesn't like him either. And this is the rationalization, the process that goes through the mind of many decent Jews over time that are committed to God, because they've had this buildup due to background and history, their community, their rabbis, their culture that has developed, that my way or the highway, as they say. And because of that, hatred has been justified. And because of that, says Rabbi Hirsch, this has brought about the destruction of the temple. We just know the history of the second Bayit, how groups were acting. We're talking about groups that are so-called observant and God-fearing. We're acting this way to each other and justifying the behavior based on their pursuit of the truth. And can't we, of course, apply this to every day and age and every time, including our own time, in a very major and extreme way? And if we think about it objectively and step back and ask ourselves, how preposterous is it really for anyone to believe that in God's anticipation of what he wants to happen, the way everything will play out, if it plays out right, we want Mashiach to come, is that everyone's going to come around and agree with my approach. That's what's going to happen. If that doesn't happen, well, I don't know. Is that ludicrous? Do we really believe this is even possible? That everyone's going to come around and agree to our approach? Can we agree to disagree? To respect the fact that there are other views out there? This doesn't mean a person shouldn't take a position. A person could take a position, have a following, be part of a group, lead that group, advocate for its beliefs and philosophies, even say the other group is wrong, explain why. And that means that one can and should formulate a movement, but not build a wall. And that's what hatred is. That's what the Sinat Hinam is. The Hinam is not baseless. There's reason behind it, but it's no reason for it. There's no reason for it. because one can build up his own set of beliefs without destroying another's. And therefore, with the help of Rabbi Hirsch and our Hachamim, we understand, conceptually speaking, that sin'ah is really the illness, as Rabbi Abahya called it, that is so easily perpetrated in our society. And he therefore says, Rabbi Abahya, that this midah mishukesed, this disgusting trait, is soter ve'oker ahva v'hari'ut. It rips apart brotherliness, unity, and feelings of love between us and fellow men. It absolutely rips it apart. And therefore, he says, and Hachamim say in general, if you have sin'ah, then you cannot be included in the company of Am Yisrael, because you don't understand that there's an ahicha out there. You don't understand and don't have the proper perspective that this is really your brother. Think about what you went through. Think about what we've been through together, suffering, surviving through centuries and continents, clinging on to each other. They want to kill us. How can we want to kill each other? And if you filter it down further, how absurd it would be. I mean, we need to cling on to every member, every brother and sister in our nation. But people that have been through something in a similar city or a similar community and that have been together for so long, to turn around and not act as ahicha, we're all we have. We're all we have. Engaging in sin'ah and that preposterous attitude that we just described is tantamount to a void of understanding what the family of God is. Lo tisna et ahicha. How unbelievably ludicrous is it to hate a brother? Because if you hate, you don't understand what brotherhood is. And that is a foundation destroyer at its core. And that, of course, has led to our destruction and will continue to lead to our state of destruction until we decide to change it. And so we'll end off on a positive note, saying that if Am Yisrael really wants galut, geulah, is really seeking the end of suffering, really yearns for messianic times, that Am Yisrael needs to get over this. Am Yisrael needs to be honest, needs to be objective. Am Yisrael needs to stop pointing fingers outwardly and point fingers inwardly. Every member of Am Yisrael, especially the religious, especially the observant, especially the leaders, especially the rabbis, everyone needs to point fingers inwardly and talk about how we stop sin'ah, stop justifying, stop rationalizing. Don't stop opining and advocating views, but stop feeling that way and acting that way and being realistic about our future. We want it to come, we yearn for it. And therefore heed the warning of our pasuk in Parashat Kedoshim. Lo tisna et ahicha levavecha, rather just treat him as ahicha. Amen.